Okay, again, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining our Cafe Conversations featuring Juneteenth, the meaning of the holiday. We have a wonderful program for you. Thank you all for joining. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us this morning. Um, as we mentioned before, the event is being recorded and it will be made available for viewing at a later date. As you see here, our program, we will follow this program for our event this morning. My name is George Harrison. I'm your Chief Program Officer for the network on the National Board. Kenya Price Berry, one of our regional directors for the Southwest, will be going over the symbolism of the Juneteenth flag, followed by Kendall Washington, one of our Southeast regional directors. He will be introducing our moderator and our guest speaker for the day. Following those introductions, we'll have our cafe conversation with our Chief Operations Officer and our wonderful guest speaker today, Mr. John Thomas Grant. In the conversation, we'll have questions and answers from the audience. If you do have questions, please feel free to drop those in the Q&A panel or the chat panel. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can during the event. Following the Q&A, we will have a test your knowledge portion of the event, where we'll be seeing how much you know about Juneteenth and the network and things like that, and we'll have some prizes up for grabs. So looking forward to that. And after the test your knowledge, we'll be having some closing remarks by our Chief Operations Officer, DeWanda Ricks. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Kenya Price Berry, our Southwest Regional Director.
Thank you, George. Good morning, everyone. The symbolism of the Juneteenth flag, the star, represents Texas, the Lone Star State, and freedom of African Americans in all 50 states. The burst, inspired by a nova, represents a new beginning for African Americans in Galveston and across the U.S. The arc represents a new horizon, the opportunities and promise that lay ahead for Black Americans. The colors, red, white, and blue, represents the American flag, a reminder that slaves and their descendants were and are American. These colors symbolize the continuous commitment of people in the United States to do better and to live up to the American ideal of liberty and justice for all. The flag is the brainchild of activist Ben Hayes, founder of the National Juneteenth Celebration Foundation. Hayes created the flag in 1997 with the help of collaborators and Boston-based illustrator Lisa Jean Graff, brought their vision to life. Kendall?
First, I would like to introduce, I have the pleasure of introducing our Chief Operations Officer for the network, Ms. DeWanda Ricks, or as DeWonderful as we like to call her. She is responsible for the performance management process that evaluates the process against goals for the network. If you know DeWanda, she showcases her passion and love for both youth and influence in the community as a whole. Her mission is to develop the hearts and minds of school-age students by volunteering her time and being an advocate and inspiring others. A multi-year winner of the prestigious President's Volunteer Service Award since 2011. She's also won the Community Extraordinary Award in 2012, the Community Transformer Award in 2017, not to mention 2 awards for the Outstanding National Member and Think Tank Awards in 2018. And in 2020, she became the recipient of the Women of Color STEM Award. Last but certainly not least, we have Mr. John Thomas Grant, who in 2015 was named Executive Director of the Celebration Bowl, the latest college football postseason bowl owned by ESPN Events. The College Bowl pits the champion of the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference against the Southeast Athletic Conference. In 2018, he added MEAC and SWAC Challenge kickoff and HBCU college football kickoff game to his Atlanta event portfolio. Now, give me some time here because it's going to be a little while because his brother's official. So just allow me to speak his some of his accolades. Mr. Grant joined ESPN from the 100 Black Men of Atlanta, where he was the CEO. This organization provides support for African Americans and youth in particular in the Atlanta community. He also joined the Air Force Express in 1979 and was promoted 2 years later to the area operations manager in Greensville, South Carolina. In 1985, he moved to Atlanta, where he held several leadership roles in operations, customer service, and sales organizations. 4 years later, he became the youngest member to join the Black Men of Atlanta at age 30. First of all, I need to step my game up. In 1989, he was voted Man of the Year after leading the organization's flagship program, Project Success. He served on the board until he became CEO in 2001. He was also chairman of the Atlanta Football Classic, the organization's largest fundraiser from 99 to 2001. It became one of the top 3 recurring sports events in the state. He's also won several awards, 100 most influential Atlanteans, 50 most influential nonprofit leaders, and Georgia's 30 most influential sports business figures of 2020. He was also inducted in the 2015 Hospitality Hall of Fame and named one of ATL's 2016 Men of the Year by Atlanta Tribune magazine. Mr. Grant also serves on several boards, including the Atlanta Convention for Visitors Bureau, Atlanta Sports Council, and the Executive Committee of the National Wildlife Federation, as well as Atlanta Braves Fan Advisory Board, Atlanta Football Host Community, and the co-founder of the Atlanta Friendship Initiative. And last but not least, he is a native of, Potosi, North Carolina? I'm from up north, so bear with me. and an alumnus of North Carolina A&T State University, and wonderful campus, by the way, because I've gone up there once. So please give a round of applause for both of these, this lady and gentleman, while I turn it back over to DeWonderful.
Thank you, Kendo. So Juneteenth commemorates African American freedom, and it emphasizes education and achievement. It is a day, a week, and in some areas a month marked with celebrations, guest speakers, and family gatherings. It is a time of reflection and rejoicing. It is a time for assessment, self-improvement, and for planning the future. So thank you, Mr. Grant, for joining us today. I am so honored to be the moderator of this event. I think you are phenomenal, and I know you're going to wow everyone here that is listening. And so, Mr. Grant, as we get started, and I just gave just a brief synopsis of how we celebrate Juneteenth. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Juneteenth, your homework assignment is to research what Juneteenth is. And so what I would like for Mr. Grant to do now is just kind of talk about what happened after the troops arrived.
Well, first of all, let me say good morning, and I want to thank all of you, and specifically the members of the network, for joining us this morning. I'm humbled and delighted with the opportunity to be with you today. I thought that Ms. Kenya Price Berry did a wonderful job in going through the symbolisms of what Juneteenth means. The symbols of it, for me, history has a very important foundation for all of us. Your history gives us an opportunity to sort of look in a rear view mirror on the road that has been traveled. I like to make sure that I stay focused on the road that I'm traveling. Knowing where I came from is important to know specifically where I'm going. And so that's why, again, from a perspective, I think that the windshield of a car is much larger than the rear view mirror, because the road is ahead. And rear view mirrors are intended for glancing back and looking at the past, and certainly understanding it. And the symbolism of Juneteenth, what it means, is historical significance, should really be simply a barometer for us to be committed, to where we are going today, and focusing on the things that we need to do today and the attention that we need to give today. You honor the past, you respect and celebrate the present, because it is the indication of where we're going and what we're doing. So that's, to be specific, to your question, in the sense that, with Texas being a border state and being one of the southernmost states in the country, once the Emancipation Proclamation was delivered and extended, Texas was one of the last states to really enact the freedom of slaves. And it wasn't until the Union troops arrived, which was generally the case in most states where slaves were freed. Union troops arrived, enforced the laws of the land as extended under the Emancipation Proclamation. And so you think about this, 2 years later, that the people, slaves in Texas, 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, that they did not receive their freedom and didn't really know about it until Union troops arrived in Texas, and General Gordon Granger, who, there to enforce the law, informed the people that they were indeed free 2 years after the news was delivered. So, that's really what happened in Texas as it relates to one of the last bastions, although it was not the true last state to institute the freedom of slavery, because you still had Kentucky and Delaware who didn't really follow the law until the actual to the end of that year, when the final amendment was passed, the amendment to the Constitution that abolished slavery was passed that year by Congress. And those two states then, of course, had to follow the law. So although Texas was near the end, it wasn't the actual last states to free slaves, because that great honor, if you call it, belongs to Delaware and Kentucky.
Wow. So, I heard you talk about, in a sense, communication, right? And so Texas being this large state, the troops coming in to announce they're free, Delaware and Kentucky, right, being the last two states. So when we look at communication then and how we communicate now, how was, in your perspective, how was information shared? How was it passed down? And I know now, right, information is readily available. Then it wasn't, but now it is. And so I hear a lot of people say, why do we celebrate Juneteenth? Why do we celebrate the fact that we had to tell people, slaves, right, that they were free? And so kind of expound on that. Communication then and communication and information now.
Well, you think about the time, whether it was by telegraph, by, the Pony Express, and or the communication or word of mouth, which was the communications methods at the time. Getting the word to people, but then also being able to enforce what was then the law, which slave owners and states in the Confederacy, even though it was a law, didn't really have a need to comply until Union troops, arrived. But I'll add to that, slavery, even in itself, even though when you look at the brutality of it, today slavery can be looked at as a mentality, and that was really the fundamentals behind enslaving large numbers of people. When you think about the number of people of African descent who were in the country, they far outnumbered. the number of plantation and slave owners. So when you have a slave owner who can have 3,000 to 4,000 people on a plantation, yet maintain control through psychological means as well as violence. At any given time, if 3,000 people say, we've had enough and bind together, I mean, it's over. So those principles, if you look very closely, can still can exist today. And so individually, we have to decide in our own mind that we are free. We have to decide in our own minds that we are free. And that is whether you are living in your personal daily life or even in the environment within which you work. If your mindset is a mindset of a free person, then your actions tend to follow that mindset as well as your behaviors. So that's position number one. Why we celebrate Juneteenth? It's important to acknowledge your past. Absolutely important. But it's even more critically important to recognize your present and the questions around what am I doing today to foster greater opportunities for others along with myself. If we're in a position of service, we're there to serve others, but to create a better environment where others can thrive and be successful, not only today, but as we build better pathways to the future.
Wow. So I got a couple of questions out of that statement there. One, what are we doing as a whole, as a people, are we progressing along or are we reversing the clock?
It's a very good question. And it comes back to what I was saying before. My father always reminds me, he says, son, and I'm the son of a preacher, but he says, son, the devil constantly works to get control of your mind, because if he gets your mind, then he has the rest of your body. If you think of it just from that perspective, we have to always think about what are the things that we consume in our minds. What's the state of our individual mind? And the fact that we read less, we consume content here in bits and pieces rather than thoroughly reading and developing understanding allows us to really not, what I would say, have a complete understanding of the state of our mind. And so you look at the content that's pushed out to us, what's important, what media platforms, and I know I'm talking to a media platform here with our AT&T, but those what platforms or the producers and the creators push forward. I give you a good example. This is one good example because how to me how meaningless it is. Do I really care that J-Lo is dating Ben Affleck? I really could give a flying flip. It has nothing to do with what I have to do myself, but yet it's constantly pushed in front of people. And some, many people see that as the thing to consume. Well, when you're consuming that or you're paying attention to that, then what you're not doing is really establishing within your own mindset those things that are going to be necessary to have you succeed. To give you one example of that, see, I work with ESPN, but I don't work for ESPN. I work for me. ESPN is my client. So in my mind, I'm a business owner. I'm John Grant Incorporated. And my responsibility is to provide a world-class service to my client. That is ESPN. I run and grow these businesses on their behalf as a vendor, not an employee, I don't have a job. Because I do believe this, the moment you believe you have a job, you really won't have one very long. If you, the shift in mindset is in that being a business versus an employee changes how you approach what you do and changes how you do what you do. So none of the people who work with me work for me. They work for themselves. And I constantly remind them of that. They have their own P&L, revenue, they got expenses, and their responsibility to provide a service to a client. Now, if at any time you don't provide that service, the client has a right to get a new vendor. That means you got fired, but that's their right to get a new vendor. If you have a job, you feel like someone owes you something. If you have a client, you know that you're constantly making sure that you are delivering on the value proposition for which you are for which you were engaged to provide. Client versus job. Big difference in how you approach it. Big difference in the way you see the value proposition.
Wow, I love it. I'm the founder and CEO of DeWanda Riggs.
Incorporated, absolutely. And your brand is as valuable as the brand AT&T. To you, it's as valuable. So there's no more value in that. And you know what? Your stockholders are going to include your family if you have children, etc. You know, your family members who have invested in you in your development and growth. Then they also, just like a stockholder who inputs cash, what you have to think about is, what is the ROI you providing back to them? Those who sacrifice to help you get where you are, you owe them some return on investment by increasing the value of their investment.
I love it. I absolutely love that. And so when you think about the content that's out there on social media and broadcast, how can we as a people, how can we change that content as it pertains to our communities to really enhance our lives so that we all understand that we are free and we can start to get that ROI on our lives?
Decide what you're going to consume. You have total and complete control over that. You know, content value is based on the quantity of consumption. Things for me, regardless if I'm watching a program or whatever it might be, if it's not delivering me any value, I don't watch it. I don't contribute to the Housewives of Atlanta. That brings no value to me in the development of my ability to provide a world-class service to my client. Doesn't help me at all. So although my team and I, we operate businesses which are sports platforms, we really are creating and delivering content, just like we are here today. Today is we're creating and delivering content. Anytime you're engaging with someone in a conversation, you are creating and delivering content. Even in a one-on-one conversation, it is a content exchange. So if the content doesn't have any value, or if the content doesn't have any meaning, why do you give it value by listening to it or engaging in it? So how can we have impact? Decide on those things that give value to one, your personal development, two, on the impact, the positive impact on your community. And if it doesn't, don't consume it. Whether it's music, television, even just a one-on-one conversation. If there's no value in the development of something positive, turn it off. Don't consume it. It's as simple as that. It's not a complex equation. It's not anything massive. It's as simple as, television creates its value through advertising, and that value is driven by consumption. If ratings go down, then the revenues go down with it, because the advertising value isn't as valuable. So if it doesn't bring anything positive to the community, turn it off. It's as simple as that. And when you do that, That's the best and most important impact you can have on your self-development, on the development of your community, as well as encouraging people to do the same. Be that General Gordon Granger, who brought the message of Juneteenth to Texas with the Union soldiers and went around reading the proclamation in different places. They didn't just say, okay, we're here. They carried the message and informed people. And that's what we have to do. We have to carry the message and inform people and then act accordingly.
I love it. Carry, inform, act.
That's it.
That's the CIA. I love acronyms.
I love it too. You may have discovered something there. You read between the lines, huh?
Right.
And we can be that.
Yes. And so through all of that, what I hear is something that my mentoring circle and I have been talking about for the last couple of months, which is a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And in order to advance, you need a growth mindset. And you spoke a lot on mindset. You spoke a lot on you have to make the decision. And so how does a growth mindset shape the community? How can a growth mindset shape our community?
Well, it starts first with the individual. Everything starts with the individual. It's easy to look outside. It's always a little bit more of a challenge to look inward. When people ask, bring up a subject about what is or isn't happening in the community, my first response is going to be, so, okay, great, that's great. What are you doing? What are you doing? Other than just talking about it, tell me specifically what you are doing, because that in turns indicate your actions. The moment also that you mentally stop growing and you get comfortable, you can tell anytime that you are really comfortable where you are no longer growing. And we as a people have gotten comfortable. And so we stop growing. And you think about how, if we look back again in history, you think about the moments of Juneteenth, not just what happened once people were notified, it's what they did afterwards. And, that we had more people in political office and in Congress during the time periods following the ending of slavery, because people got comfortable being uncomfortable. They got comfortable being uncomfortable. We enjoy the right to vote because people became comfortable being uncomfortable. Well, once those rights are passed us, we got comfortable. And so as a result of doing that, you now have what's happening across the country, with laws being passed that are restrictive in many cases, activity in work environments that some say may or may not be fair, because we got comfortable being comfortable. And it's time to be uncomfortable. And one should stay uncomfortable. And my last point on this comment is, I always love watching kids. I learn a lot from watching how kids develop and grow. And remember, when I was with the 100, we spent a lot of time, developing youth and working with youth. And, to hear a child say, my joints hurt, and that was telling me that they're in a growth spurt. That means their body was stretching. And so the same thing happens with the mind. If you're not exercising it, if you're not staying in a space that's uncomfortable, which means you're constantly learning, and you get comfortable thinking you know everything, that's the most dangerous place to be. And it's the most non-productive place to be. And that's generally, when you're in that place, that means you're the very closest to the exit door. You're very close to everyone listening. If you're in a place like that, and that's the mindset you have in what you do relative to your work, then you're probably the closest to the exit door.
So you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And so what I want to caution is being busy for the sake of being busy. So what is a productive day like in Mr. John Grant's world?
That's a good question. For me, I always keep a notepad and pen by my bed, because I'll wake up in the middle of the night with an idea, and I always want to make sure I capture it, so I write it down. My mind is constantly focused on, what can I do to be better? What can I do to bring value to my client? What can I do to bring value to my community? And what can I do to just be a better, human being? Reflecting on the question every day: what kind of human am I being today? And so my total focus is on dealing with what's in front of me today. When someone asks me, well, what are your goals for 5 years? I don't have any. Ask me, what is my goal today? If I do what I'm capable of doing today at the absolute best of my ability, 5 years will take care of itself. Why? Because I had no idea I'd be doing what I'm doing now 5 years ago. Had no idea. And so but I do know that because I did and excelled at where I was in the moment that I was in that moment, then it allowed what I'm doing now today to manifest itself, because I was excellent in the moment. And my advice is to be excellent in the moment. Don't worry about what's coming down the road. That's going to take care of itself, whether you're excellent in the moment or you're not. If you're not excellent in the moment, it's going to take care of itself. If you are excellent in the moment, it will take care of itself. So be excellent in the moment where you are, and make sure you're giving your absolute best to that moment, and the rest will just take care of itself.
That is awesome. Excellent in the moment. I absolutely love it. Well, that is all of the questions that I have for you. I had an absolute wonderful time with this discussion. At this time, we're going to take questions from our audience. So, Mr. George, do we have any questions from the audience?
We do, Madam CEO. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Thank you, DeWanda, for that wonderful conversation. We have been getting several questions in the chat here, and I just wanted to share some. Just listening here, I'm just taking notes as we're speaking here myself. Just some of the words of wisdom so far. Carry the message. Make sure that we're informing others and acting on that knowledge and that power. I think those were some really key points and perspectives that you brought. And then another note I wrote down here: focus on the value of the content that we consume. Does it bring us? Does it improve our self-development? And also, does it help us to improve our communities? All very valuable points and valuable things to remember. And then also, Mr. Grant, I like the perspective that you bring as far as how we see ourselves, and the perspective that we take as far as working for an employer versus working for a client. And I think I'm going to try to incorporate that and look at it as, AT&T, of course, is my employer, and I love working for AT&T, but at the end of the day, they're also my customer. I'm trying to make sure that I'm bringing them value. I'm trying to make sure that my performance is top notch, every day that I come out. So thank you for that. Thank you, Dee, and thank you, Mr. Grant, for that conversation. So let me jump into a few of the questions that we've had here so far from the audience. Mr. Grant, here's a question for you. We have a couple of members asking, how can we follow you on social media?
Very good question. You know, I am on Facebook. You can follow me on Facebook. You can search me there. Also on LinkedIn, as well as on Twitter and Instagram. So you know, I maintain the social contact, but I'm also in that space. But I also use it. I use it to communicate at things that reflect my beliefs and values. I'm not just out there just to say, hey, look, here are pictures of me doing this, or hey, look, I'm lying on the beach doing that. If it's not positive, if I'm not communicating something that's impactful or thoughtful, then I certainly don't try to do that. I mean, I certainly don't do that. So I am in all of those social spaces, and feel free to search me out.
I appreciate that. If it's okay with you, if it's okay with you, I'll contact you offline off the call. Is it okay if we share your contact information on social media with our members?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, I'll do that. I appreciate that.
Well, I was going to give them a little homework because those who really want it will go and get it.
Ah,
And those who, if you really want it, it's out there. That's why I didn't give my handles or anything. If you want it, it's out there for you to find. I mean, you just have to do a little work. And that's the difference between the mindset difference that I was talking about before. We have platforms now that there's no information that can be hidden if you want to go find it.
well said. Well said. I appreciate that. Thank you for that. Okay, next, another question we have from one of our members. This may be the response may be similar, but I'll go ahead with the question. Where can we find information on the teams and schedules for the conference championship games in the SWAC and MEAC challenge?
That's a very, very good question, and thank you for whoever asked that. You can visit our website at the first one is MEACSWACchallenge.com. MEACSWAC challenge.com. That's the Labor Day. I mean the week 0 game, and then the championship game is the THE celebrationbowl.com. And if I can touch on that for 1 minute, just to give some perspective. So I was brought to ESPN in 2015 from 100 Black Men after some conversation with them about an opportunity. They wanted to bring a bowl game to Atlanta, and seemingly everywhere they went, people were referring them to reach out to me, unknowingly to me. But that was the power of the establishing relationships. And long story short, I came on board with them after they asked me a couple of times, and we finally did so to launch the Celebration Bowl in 2015, a national championship game for HBCUs. Now, the reason that they wanted to do it and the reason that I decided to make them a client were probably two different things. Being a graduate of an HBCU, I understood the power of having a platform and a national stage like this game on ABC to tell our stories. See, it wasn't about putting on a football game for me. It was about having the opportunity to tell our stories and shape our image, and using sport as the content backdrop to do that. And that's why I do it today, and recognize the power of storytelling through sports, and to make sure that we are the ones that are identifying the stories that we want to have told, and not having someone else deciding the story that's important through their lens. Our story is important through our lens. And so that is critically important for us, critically important for our team. And by doing so, we bring value to our client by helping them connect and inform and educate. So again, we carry, we inform, and we act.
It all comes full circle. I love it. I love it. And just another plug here for the MEAC and the SWAC championships. For anyone who, and even for those who haven't, I didn't go to an HBCU myself, but for those who've ever been to an HBCU college game, you know that the energy and the history and just the camaraderie there between the teams and the fans and everything is something that's unlike anything else. So if you've never had an opportunity to watch the MEAC or the SWAC championship games, I definitely encourage it. It's definitely something to enjoy. And if you get an opportunity further on down the road in the future to attend one, I highly recommend it. Highly energetic game. Thank you, Mr. Grant.
George, I want to add a little something to that.
Yes, sir.
Because we've been talking about this on this call. And why is it important? So if you can't come, watch. If you can't watch, turn your TV on anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Why does that matter? Because we talked about how you create value. These two properties are the largest, from a total live audience, the largest two sporting events for HBCUs in the country. See, we used to measure our history. We determine largesse by how many people are there. Well, now with the power of media in sports, it's how many people are engaging and consuming the content. So the Celebration Bowl will have over 3 million people watching versus a game that can have, say, 60,000 in attendance. Which one is really more valuable? Which one has the capacity to touch and reach and educate and influence more people? So the reason why it's important for us to engage and support in whatever way we can, because those are platforms where we are telling our stories. We are telling our story. So by bringing value to the client and by taking the mindset that I take of not having a job, then I'm constantly leveraging the fact that I am the expert in this space, that I have a sense of what it takes to do that. And that's why you engage me to do this. And and don't think it's just easy. You constantly have to push and cajole and shove, and also demonstrate to people that you know what you know. And I don't let anyone tell me what I'm incapable of doing. But more importantly, I'm not letting it be me to tell me what I'm incapable of doing. That's the first person I get out of the way is myself. Once I get myself out of the way, everybody else is like bowling pins. I just have to roll the ball. But if I'm in my way, then the pins have no fear because there is no ball. There is no bowling ball when you're in your own way. So
Well said. Thank you for that again. And again, I can't overstate it, but just bring it full circle. The content that we create by hosting those games and televising that, and the reach that it gives, is creating content and it's bringing value to the client.
Which in turn drive the desire and to have more and create more and do more, which benefits our community.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Okay. Another question we have here from our members: if we want to preserve our history, what are some ways that you may recommend we could do this in today's society?
Oh my God, the sky is the freaking limit for that. I mean, we have the technology available to us today is unmatched. Let me give you an example. So, before I lost my mom, I sat down with her and just took my phone and just say, "Mom, talk to me." She gave me all our history of her family loaded into my phone, recorded, which I then, of course, downloaded for posterity, so that not in someone else's words, that, you know, my kids, their grandkids and their grandkids and so forth and so on will get it in her words. And to do that, not just with her, but even to telling my own story and making sure it's recorded so that someone else, you know, down the line can have it. So not having, you know, preserving your individual history, there is no reason why you shouldn't be doing that. The more you know about who you are, the more empowered you can be, the more empowered you are. See, I know that I'm a descendant of slaves. I know what my great-grandfather did. I know that he bought his way out of freedom. I know that he moved from North Carolina and changed his name from Flight back to Grant and then began to acquire land. I know that he had a brick factory, a lumber factory. And I know that he built the first school in the area because kids had to walk so far to school and paid the teacher out of his own pocket. I know this. I know that when you look at the history of my county now, that his name is in the county. This man was a slave. And he didn't run. He bought his way out. How he did it, I have no idea, but I know that he did. And if he did that, there's nothing that I can't do. And that's what, because I know that, then I am empowered, and I encourage everyone who is within, you know, the sound of my voice, find out your history. No matter what it is, it's your history, and use that as the tool to empower you mentally, spiritually. It's the greatest gift you could give yourself.
Thank you for that. All right, I think we have time for one more question. There's so many here. I apologize if we won't be able to get to these great. There's so many great questions here, so I'm going to apologize in advance. We won't be able to get to all of them, but let's see. A question here, just kind of bringing it to present day. What can I do to get leadership in my company on my side to help me get promoted?
What can I do to get leadership on my side to help you get promoted? That is a good question. And let me ask you to think about reframing how you look at that. What can I do to get leadership in the company on my side to help me get promoted? What can I do to bring greater value to the services that I provide that make being promoted a no-brainer? That's the same question phrased in a different way. And when you phrase it that way, it's not about what you can get someone else to do. It's about what can I do? What can I do to increase the value of myself as a service provider that makes being, I'm gonna say sought after. I won't even say being promoted, that makes being sought after a no-brainer. That's what you need to do. Change the way you look at things. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Let me repeat that once more. And that was Dr. Wayne Dyer said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Very good. Thank you so much for that. Mr. Grant, we can't thank you enough for the words of wisdom and this insight and this information that brought to us. And you are definitely dropping some knowledge and giving us a lot to think about, giving us some homework. And homework is not always a bad thing. Homework helps us to grow. Homework helps us to build and strengthen our minds and strengthen our ideas. So we thank you for the homework assignment. We're going to go and take it, and we're going to take hold of that. We're going to also take a look at how we view the perspective of employment as far as an employer versus a client. And we're going to try and hope carry the message, inform others, and act on the knowledge that we can bring. So thank you, Mr. Grant. We appreciate that.
Thank you so much. for having me. I'm delighted to spend my time with each and every one of you, and certainly wish you all the best.
We appreciate it. We appreciate it. All right. So now, thank you again, Mr. Grant. We're going.
Thank you, muted.
Okay, I'm here. Hi, thank you. That was awesome, wasn't it? Okay, so now it's time to test our knowledge. So if you can go to everyone who wants to participate, kahoot.it on your personal devices. We are going to get started with Test Your Knowledge. Once you go to kahoot.it, you're going to enter this game pin so that you can participate in the Test Your Knowledge session. If you have won anything in the last 90 days, unfortunately, you will not qualify for a prize today. This game will be scored by whoever answers the question first correctly. The top 3 winners will be announced at the end of the game, and you will need to provide your name that you're entering here for Kahoot and your APTUID into the chat. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Looks like we've got plenty of people coming in. Remember, whomever answers correctly and the quickest. Here we go. Juneteenth, test your knowledge. Here we go. First question, what date in history does Juneteenth commemorate? All right, and the answer is June 19th, 1865. 78 got it right. Let's see who answered first. All right, looks like Sweet Tea, Parsa, and Donovan are in the lead. Let's go to our next question. In what year was the network BICP founded? And the answer is 1969. Oh, let's see who answered. All right, now we've got Kim G, NA824, and Erica in the lead. Let's go to our next question. How many African Americans currently serve in the U.S. Senate? And the answer is 3. Oh, they got you with that one. All right. Somebody else taking the lead here. All right, let's go to the next question. In what Texas city did U.S. soldiers deliver the news that slaves had become free? And the answer is Galveston. All right. Kelsey's still in the lead. Let's go to our next question. In what year was the Voting Rights Act signed into law by President Johnson? And the answer is 1965. Kelsey is still in the lead. And our last question, what is the mission of the network BICP? And the answer is transforming our future by empowering our members and our community today. All right, so it looks like our three winners are Kelsey M, L, and Erica R. If you can put your nickname here and your ATTU ID in the chat, we'll get your prizes out to you. Thank you, everyone, for playing. We're going to turn it back over to Ms. B.
All right. I hope y'all had fun. I wish I could have played. I probably would have lost. But anyway, thank you all for attending. Thank you, Mr. Grant, for coming and just dropping all of that awesome knowledge on us. And I just hope everyone really enjoyed as much as I did. Juneteenth for me is about celebrating my freedom. It's about knowing that I am free. And of course, it starts with how I think. And we talked about that growth mindset, right? So I want to challenge everyone. If you don't know about Juneteenth, really do your own research, right? Get that content. And then I challenge, how you communicate. I challenge you to just look at the content that you absorb. I challenge how you share your story, right? Mr. Grant talked about the power of storytelling, and it's not just for an organization, but it's for ourselves as well. And then I also, challenge you to pay it forward with future generations, right? Remember, CIA, carry, inform, and act. Thank you all so much. We love you guys. Stay blessed. Talk to you soon. Bye.